His name is Gregor Barovski, FSB. He specialized in counterintelligence in Europe, responsible for the deaths of 9 MI6 agents. Single most dangerous man I've ever met.
The story begins with a tense underwater mission. The main character, named Stratton, is an elite sergeant of the British Royal Navy Special Boat Service. He and his teammate Marty are ordered to go to the Middle East to destroy a virus factory. The two are taken by a secret submarine to Strait 34. Aggie and 2 other teammates are responsible for providing remote support. According to the detailed plan already laid out, they need to enter the factory through the drainage system. After arriving at the pumping station, Stratton uses a special device to cut an inspection hole in the pipeline. Aggie has also infiltrated the control system of the pumping station and turned off the water pump blades. Fully equipped, the two begin their operation. They have to swim about 1 kilometer to reach their destination. However, halfway through the journey, the diving system issues a warning. Their oxygen supply is only at 50%. Stratton is startled and immediately realizes that there must be corrosive liquid in the water that has destroyed their oxygen tubes. Worse up ahead appears an iron net that the intelligence report did not mention. Stratton doesn't have time to think and quickly raises the pliers to start cutting the net. At the same time, his teammates' diving equipment is corroded and completely falls off. Marty has to switch to a backup air tank that only lasts for 2 minutes. After struggling to cut through the iron net, Stratton's equipment also falls off due to severe corrosion. The situation is extremely dire. They can only take turns breathing from the backup oxygen while trying to speed up, but at this point they are still 300 meters away from their destination. However, before they can breathe a sigh of relief, an even greater crisis strikes. The blades that seem to have been shut down suddenly switch back on. The powerful suction is like an invisible hand pulling Marty away. Stratton calmly reacts with extreme speed, swimming forward to grab Marty and using all his strength to pull him into the side pipe. Outside, Aggie and the others are also extremely tense. At this moment, the oxygen of the 2 men has run out completely. They can only hold their breath and continue swimming toward the exit. Right at the final second, they reach their destination. After stabilizing himself, Stratton cuts the padlock. The two open the drainage net and climb up. After that, they grope their way toward the target area. But strangely, after walking a long distance, they do not see a single person. The silence makes them uneasy, as if everyone here had already heard the news and fled beforehand. Without thinking too much, the two begin placing explosives on the chemical equipment. This is exactly their purpose today. Next, they only need to obtain a sample of the chemical weapon for their mission to be complete. However, when they reach the laboratory, an indescribable sense of unease rises in their hearts. And very quickly, that feeling is confirmed. All the staff in the laboratory are already dead. Not a single one survived. Stratton touches one of them and feels it is still warm, which means these people died not long ago. The chemical weapon that was supposed to be stored here has also disappeared. Clearly, someone got there first. This makes Stratton feel that there might be a traitor who leaked this operation. But now is not the time to dig deeper. They must retreat immediately. After receiving the message, Aggie quickly arranges for a helicopter to pick them up. The two also move cautiously toward the rendezvous point. But the factory area, which had been quiet, suddenly fills with heavily armed gunmen. The two quickly react and engage in combat with them. However, the gunmen are all firing from above. Even though both are elite soldiers, they are still overwhelmed. Stratton is forced to detonate the bombs early to create a distraction. He hijacks a pickup truck and begins to escape. Immediately, the gunmen also drive after them. The two run while firing back. Because the vehicle is too old, they cannot shake off their pursuers. Finally, due to the truck's lack of power, they are blocked by a dirt slope. At this moment, all the pursuers arrive. The two can only take cover behind the truck to continue fighting back. The boss receives a sniper rifle, takes aim and pulls the trigger. The bullet pierces through Marty's neck, severing his artery. Stratton immediately rushes forward to give first aid. The helicopter arrives just 1 second later. Under the fierce covering fire of the sniper on the helicopter, they pull Marty on board together and quickly take off. Stratton keeps patting Marty to call him back to consciousness, but at this moment, Marty no longer responds. Marty's death deals a heavy blow to Stratton. He doesn't even dare to answer Marty's wife's phone call. Returning to London, Stratton goes to his father's small boat. As soon as they meet, Chan realizes that his son is not in a good state, knowing he might have suffered grievances outside. So he stands up and takes him to a bar to unwind. The father and son drink heavily, and the pain seems to ease in that fleeting moment. The next day, after regaining his spirit, Stratton returns to MI6 to report the mission. He meets the team leader, codenamed Lady Sumner. Thinking he would be punished, Stratton is surprised when Sumner does not blame him for this failure. On the contrary, she advises him to recover his strength and find the specific direction of the chemical weapon. Leaving Sumner's office, Stratton goes straight to Aggie. She also had to endure enormous pressure during this mission. Stratton comforts her, saying they should look forward, since there are some things they cannot control. At that moment, another colleague who participated in the mission, Cummings, walks in. He is very surprised to learn that Stratton has not yet been suspended, but Stratton does not want to pay attention to him. After Aggie steadies her emotions, the two review the mission footage together. They both focus on the man who killed Marty. Although it is clear that he is the leader, there is no information about his identity. Therefore, the investigation today has to end here. Stratton returns to base to gather all of Marty's belongings. After the funeral ends, he will have to hand these things over to Marty's family. But at that moment, a man in military uniform appears behind him. His name is Walker, sent from headquarters to replace Marty and also to be Stratton's new teammate. Walker was once Marty's subordinate, and Marty had saved his life. Because of this, he refused a promotion and salary increase to come here and serve as Stratton's partner. Stratton understands clearly that he is doing this to avenge Marty, but he still reminds him not to bring personal emotions into the mission. After that, Sumner convenes a general meeting. They clarify that the missing chemical weapon is called Satang Snow. It is created from the most dangerous pathogen to date. Once released, it will be a disaster for humanity. Stratton adds that this man is the leader of the group of gunmen. After looking closely at the photo, Sumner immediately recognizes who he is. His name is Barovski, also an agent of the Russian intelligence agency and a counterintelligence specialist in Europe. 9 May, 6 agents have died at his hands. Barovski, who disappeared 20 years ago, suddenly reappears. Sumner knows very well what they are about to face next. Therefore, she calls Stratton and Cummings into her office. Years ago, MI6 set a trap, fabricated evidence, and announced publicly that he was a double agent. Barovski was attacked by his own country. That same year, he was killed by his own teammates. Everyone believed he was truly dead, but 20 years later, he resurfaces and even seizes the chemical weapon. This shows that he has begun his revenge plan. Sumner orders them to give their utmost effort and quickly eliminate this threat of Barovski. But she does not know that at this moment, Barovski has already begun to act. To test the lethal effect of the chemical weapon, he installs a dispersal device onto a pickup truck. Then he orders 2 masked subordinates to drive the truck into a village. The curious children all run after the truck, but as it passes by, everyone collapses to the ground. This process lasts only 30 seconds. The attack causes 148 civilian deaths. MI6 receives the news immediately, and everyone is utterly shocked. Aggie speculates that if the toxin were dispersed in a high-altitude area, the disaster it would cause would be unimaginable. But dispersing this toxin requires highly complex technology. At present, only 2 people know this technique, Adnan Holmes and Tariq Alawi. Only Alawi fits the conditions, because 20 years ago, he once cooperated with Barovski. So the Special Forces team rushes without rest to the city where Alawi is located. When the target appears, Stratton and Aggie disguise themselves as a couple and make contact. Walker receives the signal and drives over. In this way, they capture Alawi, but the interrogation process is not smooth at all. Someone who once cooperated with Barovski is not an easy figure. Although Stratton uses every trick, from coercion to persuasion, Alawi remains unmoved and firmly keeps silent. It is only when he sees the video on Aggie's phone that his smile completely fades. Aggie tells him this is footage shot by a sniper who is currently monitoring his son. If he does not cooperate, he will never see his son again. Hearing this, Alawi panics and agrees to reveal everything he knows. As they suspected, Alawi has indeed helped Barovski synthesize the chemical weapon, but he has already left. He has gone to Greece to find a drone enthusiast named Gray. Barovski wants to use drones to disperse the chemical weapon. This method is far more effective. This time, it is Stratton who loses his composure. The two immediately leave. Keeping someone like that alive would only be a disaster. In the blink of an eye, they arrive in Greece. Aggie stays in the car to keep watch. Walker and Stratton, using the address provided by Alawi, climb to the rooftop and break into Gray's house through the skylight. The drone placed in the middle of the room is the one specially made for Barovski. Walker begins installing miniature cameras in every corner of the room. Stratton uses his phone to take pictures of the drone from multiple angles. At this moment, Aggie downstairs discovers that Gray has returned. After confirming with a photo, she immediately alerts them to withdraw. Receiving the message, the two retrace their steps, while Gray and his men enter the room, without noticing anything unusual. By evening, a small truck stops outside Gray's house. Under the team's surveillance, the man who steps out is none other than Barovski. Walker is about to act, but Stratton stops him because it is not yet the right moment. Barovski enters the room and meets with the group, Stratton and his teammates observe all their actions through the miniature cameras. Through the conversation, they learn that Barovski has ordered a total of 4 drones from Gray. 3 have already been delivered, and this is the final one. Moreover, these drones are all equipped with a navigation system. By simply entering the activation code, they will fly to preset targets. Gray says he has put a great deal of effort into these drones and hopes Barovski will pay a worthy price. Just as Barovski is about to speak, he hears a crackling signal coming from the computer, streaming a football match nearby. He immediately realizes it is electronic interference. He walks over to the computer and easily finds the camera. After confirming it as the source of the interference, he throws it to the ground and smashes it underfoot. As a result, all he receives in return are a few bullets. After killing Gray, Barovski does not leave, but makes a phone call. Very quickly, 2 burly men step out of the small truck. Together they pack up the drone, carry it down, and load it into the truck. However, just as they are about to leave, Walker ignores the warnings and rushes out of the car. Seeing this, Aggie drives forward to block the road but is attacked by Barovski. In the panic, the car loses control and crashes into the side, becoming completely immobilized. Barovski seizes the chance to return to his vehicle, steps on the accelerator, and speeds away. Stratton and his team cannot spare a thought for Aggie and can only drive after him. Walker's actions have forced them entirely into a passive position. The 2 vehicles engage in a furious chase through the streets of Greece. After shaking off Stratton for a short distance, Barovski notices the narrow alley of a bar. Without hesitation, he accelerates straight into it. The alley becomes completely blocked. When the 2 arrive, they can only get out of their car and helplessly watch Barovski escape. Back in London, Stratton meets with Sumner. Once again, the mission has failed, so he comes to accept responsibility. Just like before, Sumner does not intend to blame Stratton. On the contrary, she reveals a few secrets to him. She has investigated and discovered that the reason Barovski did not die was because his teammate back then could not bring himself to finish the job. He even helped him escape. Not long ago, the 2 met again. That old teammate had since become Deputy Minister of Defense. For the sake of promotion, he handed over documents about the chemical weapon to Barovski. He told him to commit a massacre and frame the current minister. This would thereby clear the path for his own career. But Barovski not only refused to follow through, he also killed the benefactor who had once spared him. That's right, he wants to seize the chemical weapon to carry out the revenge plan he has harbored deep in his heart for so long. Sumner also tells Stratton a secret that leaves him stunned. The person who fabricated the evidence to expose Barovski back then was none other than herself. At that time, she was still an unknown agent. To quickly build her career, she volunteered to take on the mission of trapping Barovski. For 5 months, she continuously fed him false information. Over time, she not only gained his trust, but the 2 even developed feelings for each other. But for her country, she falsely accused Barovski of being a double agent, causing him to be hunted by his own nation. She too was disheartened for a while. What they did not know was that Barovski's choice of revenge was in part related to this relationship. Afterward, Stratton returns to base and finds Walker packing his things. Walker understands that the failure of this mission was due to his own impulsiveness, which nearly cost his teammates their lives. He thinks Stratton will expel him, but Stratton says nothing, only telling him to follow. Then the 2 go together to his father's small boat. He wants his great father to give advice to the young man, while he himself goes into the cabin to listen. The 2 converse happily. Chan even shares about Stratton's background. It turns out they are not biological father and son. Years ago, when Chan met Stratton, he was only 9 years old. At that time, both of Stratton's parents had died. He had wandered for a whole year. To give him a stable environment, Chan decided to adopt him. Father and son have relied on each other ever since. Chan's words are meant to tell Walker that, do not sink into the mire of the past, but look forward and protect those beside you. That is Chan's wisdom, and also what shaped the son who shares no blood with him. At MI6 headquarters, the staff are trying to decode the navigation module from the drone, but because the enemy has encrypted the route, they cannot determine the exact coordinates. Barovski is Russian, so Sumner orders Cummings to contact the Russian intelligence agency to see if cooperation is possible in attacking Barovski. Upon receiving the order, Cummings returns to his office, but sees an email on his desk. After reading its contents, he immediately becomes tense. He quickly goes to close the door. It turns out Cummings is actually a Russian spy planted inside MI6. His contact was the Deputy Minister of Defense, who has since been killed by Barovski. And this email is sent by Barovski himself to threaten Cummings, demanding that he find a way to return the drone's navigation module to him. After reading the email, Cummings is terrified and immediately hides all documents. But in order to survive, he still has to stay firm and meet Sumner, handing over an exclusive piece of classified information. Inside is a photo of an American journalist imprisoned in Chechnya. Cummings says this news was deliberately released by the Russian intelligence agency to signal to MI6 that they are willing to cooperate. They are also ready to hand over the American journalist, but this will only happen on the condition that the drone's navigation module be exchanged. Sumner considers it feasible. Very quickly, Stratton and Walker receive orders to go to the exchange site. While waiting, the two carefully study the target's photo and notice a tattoo of the word "muck" on the inside of his right elbow. Not long after, Russian intelligence agents bring the target. Walker also takes the navigation module from the passenger seat. Just like that, the two sides complete the exchange. But just before leaving, Stratton notices that there is no tattoo at all on this man's arm. The two look at each other but say nothing, only supporting the man forward for a while. When they open the car door, they discover that the real journalist had already been killed long ago, so they immediately drive away from the scene. Upon returning, they immediately meet with Sumner to explain the situation. He says that in several recent operations, the enemy has always been prepared in advance. This shows that someone on the inside has leaked information. The mission details are top secret, known only to a few people, and the only person who knows about these missions without directly taking part in them is Cummings. Walker wants to add more, but Sumner interrupts him. She says it is still too early to draw conclusions, and that at the very least, they must hear Cummings's explanation first. However, when she goes to find Cummings, his office is already empty. It turns out Cummings has realized he is about to be exposed and has fled beforehand, but that no longer matters. Sumner believes that Barovski and his drone remain the top priority now, and the decoding team has brought hope. They have obtained the programmed coordinates of the drone. Using this information, they generate a 3D image and discover that the drone's target is none other than London. If Barovski detonates the drone over London, it will be a catastrophic disaster for the entire United Kingdom. So they monitor all ships from Greece that could be transporting the drone. They discover that only one has made it into England. It even docked illegally at the bank of the Thames. After pinpointing the ship's exact location, Sumner immediately dispatches a special forces team, led by Stratton, to move out toward the target. At this moment, the drone is being unloaded onto the ground. Just then, the special forces arrive and quickly engage in combat with the gunmen on the ship. Seeing the situation turning bad, Barovski immediately jumps onto a boat, carrying the drone that has just been unloaded, and quickly speeds away. Seeing this, Stratton and Walker also take a boat to chase after him. The two sides engage in a fierce chase and gunfight on the Thames River. But just as they are about to catch up with Barovski's boat, a pontoon bridge ahead suddenly closes. Barovski and his men have already passed through. They are blocked on this side of the bridge. They are left only to watch helplessly as Barovski escapes into the distance. Upon hearing the news that Barovski has escaped, Aggie intends to take the evidence back to headquarters to report. But unexpectedly, a forklift blocks her path. Right after that, a man gets into the car. It is none other than Cummings. Then under Cummings's threat, Aggie drives to the location he designates. On the way, she talks to distract him, while secretly calling Stratton. Stratton answers the call but hears the conversation between Aggie and Cummings inside. He immediately realizes that Aggie is deliberately letting him listen. Aggie urges Cummings to turn himself in. As long as he no longer continues helping the enemy, at the very least he can preserve his life. But Cummings knows very well what he has done, and the consequences of it. After saying this, he points the gun at his own head and pulls the trigger. He thinks this is the only salvation. Hearing the gunshot, Stratton is extremely tense. But soon after, he receives a reply message from Aggie, and only then does his heart ease. He immediately drives off, following the location she sends. At this moment, Aggie is stirred by Cummings's final words. She decides to go inside to investigate the situation. Unexpectedly, she discovers Barovski and his men carrying the drone inside. Aggie immediately reports this to Stratton, but right then Barovski heads toward the bus where she is hiding. Barovski goes up to the second floor and opens the roof of the bus. His men operate a crane to lift the drone and slowly lower it inside the bus. This is their new plan, to use the bus as the transport vehicle for the drone. After preparations are complete, the bus leaves the abandoned warehouse. Aggie immediately syncs the location for Stratton, but because there are too many buses around it is impossible to identify which one it is. So Aggie comes up with an idea. She quietly moves to the back of the bus, turns on her phone's flash, and continuously takes photos outward. Stratton and his team arrive at the scene and easily lock onto the bus as their target sticking close behind it. When the bus reaches the outskirts, Sumner gives the order to open fire. Upon receiving the order, the two quickly accelerate. Stratton raises his gun and fires a burst into the bus. Barovski realizes he is under attack. He decisively climbs to the second floor, intending to launch the drone. But due to the gunfight below, the bus shakes violently, giving the drone no chance to take off. Stratton seizes the moment, slips inside the bus, and engages in combat with the gunman inside. Walker takes the opportunity to get close and shoots the driver. Before the bus completely loses control, he throws a grenade inside. Walker is knocked unconscious, while Stratton is pierced in the leg by a shard of metal. He endures the pain and pulls it out. Not long after, Barovski also regains consciousness. At this moment, Stratton sees the drone outside. He takes out a grenade, intending to crawl out and destroy it, but he is shot once, from behind, by Barovski. Stratton summons all his strength to push forward, only to be struck by another bullet. Just as he crawls out of the bus and prepares to detonate the grenade, Barovski once again raises his gun. Fortunately, Walker wakes up in time and intervenes, saving Stratton from death at the last second. Barovski opens his computer and enters the activation code. The drone immediately powers on, and he holds it steady with his hand to keep its balance. At this moment, the counter-terrorism forces arrive. Stratton throws the grenade outside, killing Barovski. The counter-terrorism unit also raises their grenade launchers. The explosion and raging fire reduce the drone and the entire stock of chemical weapons to ashes. The crisis is completely resolved in this instant. The film Stratton not only delivers tense and thrilling action scenes, it also deeply explores human nature when confronted with the sacrifice of comrades. It examines the betrayal of a traitor and the cunning of the enemy. Stratton remains steadfast in his beliefs, demonstrating extraordinary courage and intelligence. Each of his choices reveals both the light and dark sides of human nature. At the same time, the film allows us to feel the power of teamwork. In this confrontation with terrorists, Stratton and his comrades trusted and supported each other. They overcame obstacle after obstacle together. In the end, they achieved the final victory. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching. What do you think of this film?